Uy, bare months na. Nakuha ko na ang 13th month pay ko. Pati na rin ang 14, 15, 16, 17, hanggang 313. Hey everyone, Vince here from AutoIndustriya, and yes, we've got the new Land Cruiser Prado or LC250 for you today. And I'd like to thank our generous benefactor for providing the car for us to try out, because even if you go to Toyota Motor Philippines, even if you go to a dealership, you're not going to be able to borrow one, much less buy one actually, because the lines, oh my, are so long. The Prado or LC250 is the baby brother to the full-size Land Cruiser 300 or LC300. So you can see the difference already with the width of the vehicle. It's a bit narrower. In terms of length, maybe it's pretty closer. It's like around 5 or just a little under 5 meters long. But it's still a big and chunky vehicle. You can see it with the design aesthetic. Very, not really sharp, but very pronounced edges. It's trying to be boxy, the way they do the angles, the way they do the details. It's nice and chunky all around. When you see it on the road, including the more upscale Lexus brother that this one has, a GX, it just looks so cool. Now, the version of the Prado we get in the Philippines, at least for right now, is solely this look. There's also one in other markets which has a round headlights. We don't get that here. We get this style of LED headlamps with the orange signal indicators right there, which is rather nice. The grille also is the vertical kind of grille, the same one I think that they also get in Australia. But still, when you pull up to one of these on the road, or when one pulls up beside you, it just looks so cool. And in a color like this, pure black, even the wheels, nice and black. And it's got these Yokohama Geolandar tires there. Yes, they consider this as the baby Land Cruiser, but you wouldn't think it when you walk up to it for the first time. By the way, on the hood, it has these cuts that look really cool, but it's also for a purpose. It's to help serve as a guide, especially when you're going off-road. Has these mirrors that remind me more of like the FJ Cruiser, which is kind of cool. Big and generous side steps. I mean, it'll take my weight, no problem, pretty easy. You can also see the height of the vehicle, along with that roof rail, that's a roof rack that's been added for extra cargo space up top if you want to mount a tent. One thing I did notice here is this is a 7-seater, yeah, but the way the door opens, it takes a piece of the actual wheel well or the fender extension with it. So the dirt here is going to be also a thing. Same with here. So if you try to get in and out and you kind of touch this, there's going to be some mud there, especially if you went off-road. So keep that in mind when you're getting in and out of your Land Cruiser Prado. The back of the Prado is nice and clean, the way they did the lights, the way they did the tailgate. By the way, no Toyota round oval emblem here, just Toyota there. Very nice and clean. Very big rear step here, which is kind of interesting. And you can see also the change. I mean, some of the other versions of the Prado before had the spare tire right here. This time, they put it under there. There is a sacrifice when it comes to the departure angle with that, so keep that in mind with your Prado. So you may want to do something else when it comes to that if you want to maximize the off-road capability of the vehicle. And wow, that's a lot of rain. Anyways, there are two ways to open the tailgate. The first is just to press this to pop open the rear glass. That gives you access to the space in here. So you can just drop some stuff if you don't really need to place anything there important. I mean, nothing like you just want to put something there quickly and then get on your way. That's one way to do it. The other way, of course, is right there. And it's a motorized lift gate, as you can see. Now, the space here as it stands, 10 inches by about 44, goes up to around 54 if you want to wedge something in there. But the great thing about this vehicle is that the rear space is very easily configurable. First, this is a 7-seater, but you can fold down the rear seats, starting first with the headrest, and then you press this. You press the control panel here to fold down the rear seat. So it takes a little bit of a while. The lower cushion does have to get out of the way for it to be able to do that. So it's a big upgrade from some of the Prados we tried before where you fold down and then you push up, this one, nice and flat. So the length now goes up to around 41.5. The width is about 44. The height here is about 33. One key thing to note here though, that the height from the ground to here is about 34 inches. But as we noticed, it's sloping downward. So if you put something there like, I don't know, apples, oranges, it may roll down. So keep that in mind. Now to fold down the middle row, it's actually quite easy, but it's not motorized, which is surprising. To fold that down, there, and then you go around to the other side to fold this down, and you get a space that has a maximum length of around 66 inches right there, which is actually quite good. There's also a compartment underneath for tools and such. So yeah, those are the things when it comes to the practicality and the cargo capacity of the Prado. Man, they really don't want me to review out today, huh? But still, on with the video. Powering the new Land Rover Defender, Land Cruiser Prado is a 2.4-liter turbo gasoline engine that Toyota calls the T24A FTS. So, turbo over there, got an intercooler somewhere, I think it's right here in front. So it's pretty much standard for something like this. I kind of would have wanted a 2.8-liter GD engine, the turbo diesel, but they're not offering that in our market and other markets. I think they are. They also don't have the hybrid version of this yet, which I know is going to be coming soon because I think they're waiting for the, EO62 to be able to really bring it in. I think it's already active, EO62, but still we don't have it in the Philippines yet. But in terms of power, you got 281 PS and 430 Newton meters of torque. The transmission is an 8-speed automatic 4-wheel drive with full independent suspension, double wishbones in front, multi-link in the back. So I know off-road purists are not gonna say, oh, I wish it had a solid axle there, but still for on-road driving, we'll see later when we try it out and see how comfortable it actually is. The great thing about the Prado is that Toyota resisted the urge to put in a monocoque for this one, meaning a unibody. They instead went for the classic frame-based vehicle, which I know you guys are gonna like. Yes, it may not have the solid axles, but it still has that robust chassis. And I hear it's been improved when it comes to rigidity, when it comes to the way they did the adhesives, the way they did the welding, and all that stuff for the frame of the vehicle. Now, looking around the engine bay, what do we see? Your air intake is over there on the passenger side. That is something that's going to be key if you want to put a snorkel on this, and I know a lot of guys are going to want to put a snorkel on their Prado because it is a capable 4x4. But one thing we're really noticing is that it seems a bit too exposed in a lot of ways. So, for example, looking at that engine, it's uncovered. There's no kind of cosmetic protection, cover, or whatever there. I mean, yeah, it is cosmetic if you do that, but still, I mean, even the Fortuner has under, the protection for the hood on top. And also, there's no hood insulator. So if you're driving around and you see the hood steaming up when the engine bay gets hot, that's gonna be the reason why. Seeing a little bit of rust on that little tongue, the cast iron tongue that they use to install the engine. So that's something also unusual with this vehicle. And when it comes to the wiring, I can see quite a bit of it. So yes, I am noticing quite a few things for a vehicle that costs, well, as much as a Prado plus the, dealer things. So guys, welcome to the general admission seats, the Gen Ad, because this is the third row of the Land Cruiser Prado. Now, I wouldn't normally be sitting here, but if I was, for short distances, it's not too bad because you do have cup holders, you have USB-C outlets here, which is cool, own AC vents, you got grab handle here, and fairly generous windows. But this is a drawback right here, you can see already, when it comes to the leg room and how high the floor is. Because the spare tire of the Prado is underneath, not on the tailgate. So that in itself creates a kind of a raised floor. So unless they raised up the roof here in the back, like you would see, let's say, in the Land Rover Discovery series, then the headroom is not going to be great. I mean, even for me, for my height, 168 cm, My head is almost on the ceiling. So keep that in mind with these kinds of vehicles. It's not for taller individuals here in the back, but for kids, should be perfectly fine. Also, it does have a recline function here, but as you can see, like here, there it's motorized, but that's about the limit because you're already at the D pillar of the vehicle. Anyways, let's check out what's here in the middle. So this is the middle row of the Land Cruiser Prado. And there are a couple of things that I want to point out right away. For starters, if you're gonna treat this as a full 7-seater, meaning somebody sitting here in the middle, well, when you sit here, you kind of have to really spread your legs because, that sounds weird, you have to spread your legs because the transmission tunnel is big. I mean, you don't really want to be stepping here, which is kind of odd. So keep that in mind in this vehicle. Now, when you are sitting here on the left side, as a 4, or at least as a 6-seater, it should work, or even better as a 4-seater, really. Because if you're seated here, you got this massive center armrest with the open cup holder. I wish it was kind of tucked in there, but still works fine, pretty comfortable. Seat back pockets there. Power windows, of course. And, ooh, hey, all the way down. That's actually quite nice. Now, your door levers here. This one is nice and tinted. You got AC vents here, just like in the back. In the middle here, you do have controls for comfort here in the back. So you got your own AC unit. You can adjust the fan speed there if you so wish. Your own temperature. Down below, I mean, like I mentioned, there is a tunnel kind of thing here. You have 2 USB-C ports and a 12-volt outlet. And you've got this HDMI port for this rear entertainment unit. Now, it is actually a nice touch, gives it that nice executive feel. But if you notice, the compromise with having the rear entertainment unit, as opposed to, let's say, having, headrests right here, like monitors here, is that it consumes quite a bit of the headroom here in the middle. So, for example, if there was somebody seated here in the middle, you can see that forehead is like right up there. So that's something that's gonna really feel strange. But again, if you're only treating this as a 4 or a 6-seater, you should be okay. The only thing though is that the reason why this is so, kind of chunky is because this one also has a sunroof or a motorized moonroof. And when you open the glass, it tucks in here. That's why this ceiling is actually a little bit lower. Combined with this, makes it a little bit chunkier. So keep that compromise in mind with this vehicle. But overall, I mean, got nice windows out here, pretty comfortable overall. Should be nice to cruise around in this later on. If we're looking at the interior of the LC Prado from a purely aesthetic standpoint, then it may not impress some of the customers because you don't see any fancy details, no wood paneling, no piano black. I mean, does that really count as not really? This, not really. So it's like they didn't really try to, put in these doodads or whatever accoutrements to make it fancier. But I like it that way. Everything here, when you look around, when you touch anything, it just feels solid. It looks like it's easy to clean, which is good for an off-roader kind of vehicle, an all-terrain kind of vehicle. And there's nothing here that's just there for the sake of design. Everything has a purpose. So the screen in front of you, it's big. Like the way they do the multi-info display instead of the usual traditional gauge. Nice and big and easy to see. You don't have to squint your eyes to see from a little screen. I like that. Same with this huge screen here, which right now we do have it in the off-road information display. More on that in a bit. And then there's a heads-up display right here. So it's projecting a little display, like some information like my transmission position, my speed, and then the dynamic radar cruise control, which, by the way, of course, this one does come with Toyota Safety Sense, which is why you get all these buttons here. So it has the lane keep, has the adaptive cruise control, or the DRCC, it has all those other features, the auto high beam and stuff. So that's kind of standard fare for this. But you look around, it almost feels like a classic vehicle, but modernized in so many ways. For example, instead of the round Toyota emblem here, or the oval Toyota emblem, it now has the classic TOYOTA, like right there. It's very classic truck. I like that. And then the steering wheel, it looks good. It looks robust. It looks chunky, and that's proper for a 4x4. The controls here for the windows are actually good. Same with the door handles here. And then when you open the windows, I mean, it's a nice view out there. You can easily rest, like your elbow here. It's got this rectangular, well, not really rectangular, but rectangular is squared off kind of side view mirror, similar to I think the FJ Cruiser. So, which is something I really appreciate. But what I like, what I think is really good here is that Toyota resisted the urge to put all the controls on this screen, which I think is a good thing for a vehicle like this. So I mean, you do have, for example, when we pop over to the vehicle, you can adjust the climate here, but why would you want to? Because you've got these nice and big and chunky buttons there, which is easy to use. You kind of, I mean, yes, it's nice that car makers put a lot of functions here, but it's really quite important to have big buttons here, because when you're driving, the last thing you want is to be fiddling around with this when you're off-roading, especially, particularly that. So you want to be able to drive and then just feel out the button there without, and make an adjustment without taking your hand, or at least your eyes, off of the road ahead. Now, you do have your seat cooling, seat heating not really useful here. Your climate controls there, all that stuff. You got your 360 camera, so let's activate it now, see what we see. That's the view from the front right, different views that you can play around with there with a panoramic view monitor. And then down here you have HDMI, yes, HDMI just like in the back. USB-C ports, I don't see any USB-A ports anywhere. So I guess if you have USB-A port devices, you may have to get an adapter for that and plug it in over in the back. Now, if you have a wireless charger capable phone, which if you're buying one of these, you probably do, put it right there and it'll charge just fine. When it comes to the Android Auto, let's plug it in now. So I've got this USB-C cable. It has to be plugged in here. It can't plug into anywhere else. When we open that, my Android Auto should come up right about now. It's pretty fast, which is a good thing. So there you go, your Android Auto. The response, nice and smooth, which is what you want out of a vehicle like this if you're paying Land Cruiser Prado kind of money. Now, speaking of this compartment here, this is actually a cool box. So if you press this button, you hear that fan. So it's a little cooler fan that's can cool your drinks and all that. And right now it's just cooling my RFID cards and my charger cable over there. But the best bit about the LC Prado are the 4x4 controls, right? And it's all right here. Now, if you notice, there's no your drive selector is here. Sorry, at least your transmission, or at least your range selector is right here. So it doesn't have a two-wheel drive high. So this is four-wheel drive high pretty much all the time. But you do have the low range right there. So you pop it in there and then it'll engage low range. We'll pop it back now. But the drive modes are right here. So you have three buttons to select pretty much what kind of driving that you're gonna do. Now if you press, if you see this light active, you have this dial that you can play around with, right? So you can, when you spin this little wheel on the screen right up there, let's go back to custom. So you have custom mode, you can adjust a few certain things. Sport S Plus, Sport S, it all adjusts how the transmission and the car behaves as well as the throttle response. Normal, then comfort, and eco. So those are the different modes under the regular drive modes of the vehicle. But if you press this button, see this, Barney? MTS, that's the terrain mode. So when you press that and that lights up, your selections up here on the screen change. So it goes from auto and then to dirt, sand, mud, and deep snow. If we have to handle deep snow in the Philippines, that's going to be a real big problem. And then down here, you have DAC, the downhill assist control, or the crawl control going down. So that's going to be useful for steep inclines, that kind of driving, if you really are the type who likes to go off-road. And believe you me, this vehicle really can go off-road. Now, here's your differential lock, the center differential lock, which is good. stability control there. Transmission control is right here. So it's P, R, and D. And then the manual mode here, push to shift up, pull to shift down. I wish it was the other way around, but not really a big deal there. There is no paddle, there are no paddle shifters here in the steering wheel, which is all well and good, and I don't think it's going to be too critical for a vehicle like this. Now, up here, what do we see? For one, you have your sunroof right there. So this one will tilt it up. There you go, for a little bit of fresh air. And then down, and then to open it, like I said, the sunroof tucks into the ceiling. So if that's the reason why this is so chunky, is because of that mechanism. It can't go up anyway because tendency is people put rails and racks on top of their Prado, as is the case in this vehicle. Now let's close it, one touch, which is nice. The other nice thing here is the rear view mirror. If you notice, it's a monitor, which is nice. So when you pop it down, it goes into the regular mirror mode. When you pop it up into night mode, it goes into the monitor mode, and you can adjust this depending on height, the rotation, that kind of, I mean, within certain limits. It's based off of the camera in the back. But overall, the impression that the Prado gives me is that it's a vehicle that's ready for adventure kind of thing. You know, it's not gonna make any apologies for being like, it almost looks utilitarian, but it's not utilitarian. It's just built well and it seems very robust. One thing I do like, it does have power seats, but it also has the adjustable cushion right here, which is something we don't normally see in a Toyota. I think it's the first time I've ever tried it in a Toyota. Anyways, let's take it out for a drive and see how it behaves on the road. I'd love to be able to take it off-road, but I don't want to dirty this car yet. We'll save that for the other guys who, you know, get loaner cars, because this one I'm going to enjoy for quite a bit. First things first, we are not going to off-road with this Prado because it's not mine. This is actually not a demo car of Toyota Motor Philippines. This belongs to a friend of ours, and even though he said, no bro, go take it out, have off-road with it, I'd rather not be responsible for a car that isn't mine and isn't insured to me. So there's that with the vehicle. But rest assured, I mean, it's a fantastic car to take off-road by reputation and by what we've seen from other people who have driven this off-road. Unfortunately, we don't get too many demo units of the Prado or the Land Cruiser in general here in the Philippines, because the units are so very dear and the dealers want to get it right away, every single unit they can get their hands on, to sell to their customers. So, you know, we can't really jump that queue or that kind of practice, because people really want to buy it and everybody needs to make money now. So rest assured, I have a feeling that wherever you take this, the off-road capability, based on all the settings and the features we've seen, the ground clearance, the tires, the way that there's a suspension, it's all gonna be okay. But when it comes to an everyday vehicle, I think the Prado really does well, because when you drive it around on EDSA earlier, later we'll show you, the way it behaves over the rougher parts of EDSA when you're going a little bit faster is really good. The way they did the sound insulation, now granted, this is not the Lexus GX version, but the sound insulation is really good. When you close the doors, nice satisfying thud. Everything feels, you feel protected inside. And that's what the Prado really represents. That's one of the things that makes it so appealing to everyone, apart from the off-road capability. You know, you just feel like you're kind of cocooned in a very good space, and that's what I really like about it. Now granted, when you drive it around, it's not gonna feel like a crossover where the steering is on point, you know, the ride is gonna be more like car. This is still very SUV. If anything, think about it more like a PPV, you know, your typical Fortuner, Everest, Montero Sport, but imagine everything upgraded with the suspension, with the noise, and particularly with how smooth the engine feels. Now, it has to be said, the engine of this one is not a turbo diesel, so you don't get that gobs of torque right away. But it is pretty good. I mean, you give it a gentle little push, the engine does respond very well. And by the way, I am in right now normal mode, so I'll put it to sport mode. It's more willing to rev, even just with a little bit more throttle pressure. So That's what the sport mode gives you. It gives you a little bit more of the response that you may want, especially when you're driving around like on a mountain road, that kind of thing. Granted, you're not going to be doing sporty, fast driving with this. That's not what this vehicle is made for. What it's made for is cruising on the highway, which it does very well. But also, mind you, when you're cruising on the highway, the sides of the vehicle is pretty tall. So sometimes you do feel a little bit of the wind if the wind is strong enough. But it's not very Larry, that kind of thing. It's not really a problem. It's more like something you just need to be aware of with such a high tall vehicle as well. But when it comes to fuel economy though, I mean, it does have an 8-speed automatic. It does have a 2.4 liter turbo gasoline engine. So on the highway, the figures are pretty good. You're looking at around 12 kilometers per liter with an average speed of about 80 kilometers per hour. In the city though, that's where it gets a little bit lower, actually quite a bit lower, because in our time with this, we're getting around 5.6 typical urban traffic. If it's a little bit lighter, it's around 6.2, I think. But when you're, in your typical drive, mind you, that's just me alone in the vehicle, not even with passengers yet. So there is something to be said about a 2.4 gasoline engine in a vehicle this size, this kind of weight. Let's go a little faster on this rougher bit. The chassis, the suspension, it just soaks it up very well. And typical, like as an everyday car, it's kind of hard to beat. Man, I really wish I could get one of these. It would be fun to use. But again, downsides, fuel economy, overall, I mean, it's got the Toyota safety sense, all that stuff. And we've put those features to the test all around before, but it's just the feeling of, when you hop into a proper SUV like a Defender, you have some of the Jeeps, particularly like the Cherokee, all that, the Discovery, Land Rover Discovery, all those vehicles kind of have this feel that you're in charge of the road ahead. I guess the question is, should you buy a Land Cruiser Prado? Or maybe even, should you line up for a Land Cruiser Prado? And the answer to that depends entirely on you. Now, it is a good car, a very well built car. But the pricing of this one is, not going to be for everyone. Also, when it comes to the queuing of this one, which is going to be a bit more of a pain than anything else. But if you can get a Prado, it's going to be great. There's also the the GX variant over from Lexus, which is even more elevated. We can't wait to try that one out because I think they do have a demo unit of that. I hope so. Well, we'll find out soon enough. So the Land Cruiser Prado, if you're expecting crossover like premium ride with this vehicle, well, that's not what it's made for. Because you see, this being a ladder frame and being quite tall, the steering is not gonna feel similar. It's gonna feel more like a PPV. So if you're moving up to this from a PPV, it's gonna feel great. If you're moving from a crossover, something more refined, into this, then it's also gonna feel different. That's the compromise of going with something like this, because it's got to be pretty decent on-road and also good off-road. So that's kind of the mix that Toyota is going for with the LC250, the Prado, and we like it that way. Now, there are some things that we wish they could improve on. For example, the fuel economy, we notice in the city is not going to be great. It's a 2.4 liter turbo gasoline. So kind of what do we really expect? That's really good. Part of it, we wish they had the 2.8 liter turbo diesel, the GD diesel variant here in the Philippines, as well as the upcoming, I think that's still upcoming, hybrid version of the 2.4. But we're not really gonna knock Toyota for that because right now the real problem is when it comes to the unit supplies. Because from what we heard, it's 1 unit per month per dealer because of the global demand for the new LC250 or the Prado. And looking at it and seeing how it behaves, we can kind of see why. The price of this, 4.8 million. But yeah, given the scarcity, it's gonna be difficult to get it for that price. Sino naman pwede kong tawagan para sa unit? Nako.